friends, I'm Sarah. Welcome back to my channel, Sunset Bow Tarot. So today I am doing a VR to a tag that was started by Julie over at Peekaboo Rose, which I felt that I definitely needed to reply to because I am the person who suggested that she make it into a tag. So it seemed like doing a VR is the least I could do. But the tag is Deck Sacrifice. So the idea here is, if you were in a situation where you needed to get rid of some decks, like if you were in a situation where maybe you needed to downsize into a smaller living space, or just for whatever reason needed to cull part of your collection, which would be the decks that would potentially be on the chopping block? And this doesn't mean, that they aren't decks that you don't love or that you don't enjoy or hold on to for a reason. But, for most of us, a lot of us have decks in our collection that we keep for a variety of reasons that aren't necessarily our most loved decks, our most used decks, but, that we know we could live without if we had to, but as long as we have the space, why force ourselves? So kind of a fun idea to talk about some of these decks. So I figured that I would go ahead and start talking about some of the decks that I would potentially sacrifice if I needed to, even though thankfully I don't. So the first deck on my list is this deck, which is the Tarot of the North Atlantic. And this is an absolutely beautiful deck. This is a deck that I really do keep to a large degree for the artwork. I do reach for it occasionally, but I won't say that this is one of my most used decks by any means. However, I am the kind of person who loves textile artwork. I love sewing and crocheting, and any type of artwork that involves fabric or stitchery is a huge interest of mine. And so this deck, it has an ocean theme, but the artwork is very much created using textile arts, which I really enjoy. And so again, this is entirely ocean themed. The suits have been changed. So stones are pentacles, and shells are cups, bones are wands, and feathers are swords. I think I got all of them, but it is a fantastically gorgeous deck. I think that this deck is available these days on Make Playing Cards. I want to say that it is available for a print on demand kind of situation. I got this back when it was very indie, and then it was out of print for a while, but I do believe that the artist has put this up on Make Playing Cards. So if this looks of interest to you, I think you can still get your hands on it. It is a very pippish deck, but I do like the fact that the pips tend to be arranged in a way that gives you a hint as to the Rider-Waite-Smith meaning of the card. So yeah, I do find it very readable. It's just not one that I tend to reach for all that often. So anyway, that is a deck that could potentially go on my chopping block if I absolutely had to, and that is the Tarot of the North Atlantic. So the next tarot on this list is the Ethereal Visions Luna Edition, and this one could go on the chopping block for a very specific reason, and also because I know exactly where it would go. The entire reason I got this deck is because it reminds me of a friend of mine who I read tarot for quite regularly. Everything about this deck, I'm just going to pull it out. It's a really beautiful one. This is the sort of second version of the Ethereal Visions. The first one was very similar in art style, but it had more gold. It didn't have as much diversity. And so this one I definitely do prefer. But the thing about this one is that the color palette of it's got a lot of purples and teals. It's very Art Nouveau. It has all of this, holographic gilding on it. And it just reminds me so much of a particular friend of mine who she loves Art Nouveau stuff. She collects carnival glass. She loves peacock feathers. Anything that's purple and teal is like a huge appeal to her. Some of the characters in this deck even look like her. And so this deck I literally just bought because of her. And so if I needed to put this deck on the chopping block, I would literally just give it to her. I've actually even thought about it because I've thought, if I just let her keep it at her house, at least that way I would never forget it when I went over there to visit. So it would always be there if I needed to read tarot for her. But then I'm sort of like, well, but then it would be her deck. It wouldn't really be my deck. Would it be weird then for me to read with it? Blah, blah, blah. So it just is a sort of odd situation. But again, if I needed to get rid of this and I needed space, I would just give it to my friend, the person who I literally bought it for. So anyway, that again is the Ethereal Visions Luna Edition. Absolutely gorgeous, a beautiful deck, but one that could easily move from my collection into the possession of another person. So the next deck that I don't want to get rid of, but I could if I absolutely had to, is the Pasta Tarot. And do not get me wrong, I absolutely love this deck. This deck is so fun. And as the name would suggest, it's entirely based on pasta. You can see my copy's a little warped here, but the different types of pasta, like filled pasta or long pasta, short pasta, all represent the different suit symbols. And, you know, it has a very Italian-American vibe. It has a lot of sort of queer themes to it. It has a lot of pop culture references, you know, sort of here and there throughout. And I absolutely love it. It's so fun. It has such a wonderful energy, but it also has like a very specific energy, if that makes sense. You know, it feels like the kind of deck that wants to be used in a fun situation. You know, like I probably wouldn't get this deck out if I was doing a super serious reading about my future. You know, it's the kind of deck that feels like it's just kind of designed for certain types of situations and certain types of energies. And so despite the fact that I absolutely love it, if I needed to get rid of it, I could, and I would live and it would be fine. But again, I do love this deck. I think it's fantastic. It thoroughly delights me. It's just one that, again, because I feel like its energy is very specific, I don't reach for it all that often, but absolutely great deck, the Pasta Tarot. So another deck that could go on the chopping block if I absolutely needed it to is the Rainbow Tarot. And again, this is a deck that I really, really enjoy. I think it's really cute. I love the colors. I love the art style. It's just a deck that I really enjoy. I do, though, have some other decks that probably could easily sit in the place of this deck if I needed them to, that have sort of similar color palette, somewhat similar energy. So, you know, this, again, it isn't a deck that I necessarily need, but I do love it. I really enjoy it. I think it's a really, really delightful, fun time. I think it's a versatile deck. I think that this is probably a deck that I could bring into reading for other people. I haven't really done that yet so far, but it definitely could really kind of work in that sort of situation, because it really is mostly a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, just with this really, really fun, colorful art style. So I do enjoy it a lot. I think it's a great deck. I could live without it if I needed to, but it is a really fun one. So again, that is the Rainbow Tarot. So next type of decks that I could let go of if I absolutely needed to, I did give some thought as to decks where I have a fair number of decks that are similar or by the same creators. And, you know, one of the things that definitely leaped out to me is the fact that I have every single deck that has been created by Three Trees Tarot. So this is my copy of the Oak, Ash, and Thorn Tarot. And if I had to let go of one of the decks that they have created, it would be this one. Not that I don't love it, but I do find that it has similar animals to the Heartwood Tarot, and as between this one and the Heartwood Tarot, I do somewhat prefer the Heartwood Tarot. I like the setting of it. I like the sort of journey of the little mouse through it. I like the fact that, you know, it takes place in that sort of rundown cottage in the woods. So even though this is a really, really sweet one, as between this one and that one, I could let this one go. The Smoke, Ash, and Ember I think would probably be safe because it has dragons, and so it's a very specific, unique thing. And not to say that this isn't unique. It's definitely very, very different from the Heartwood Tarot, but I think at the end of the day, if I want this energy, the Heartwood is the one that I would reach for. So again, I could theoretically let this go if I absolutely had to. Now, thankfully, I don't have to because I have enough space, so that it's totally fine. I can absolutely hang on to it. But, you know, again, if I have multiple decks by a single creator, it sort of makes me think, do I really need all of those? And this is the one, if I had to let one go, this is the one I'd let go of. So next deck on this list of decks I could potentially get rid of, if I absolutely had to, is the Everyday Witch Tarot. And, you know, the reason that this one came up to mind for me is because this is a wonderful deck. And again, I do reach for it occasionally, but I know a lot of people really, really love this deck and are super, super bonded to it. You know, the person who I got this tag from, Peekaboo Rose, Julie, is one of those people, obviously. So, you know, I know that this is a very, very beloved deck, and I love it too. Like, I do enjoy it. I like the artwork. You know, I really think that it has a fun tone to it. I've had fun experiences whenever I've read with it. Like, I think it has a very sort of specific voice that's a little bit snarky and tongue-in-cheek and fun, and I hate this devil card, but aside from that, I do think that this is a really, really fun deck, and I like having it in my collection. But if I needed to let go of this one, I could. Like, I could definitely live without this one if I needed to. So again, I don't have to because I have space, but despite this being a really, really fun deck, it is definitely one that I don't consider to be like a super, super pivotal deck in my collection. So next up is a pair of decks where I'm pretty sure I could let one of these go, because at the end of the day, does anybody need two cute, small, pink, kind of offbeat Marseille decks? I have both the Squid Cake Marseille and the Marshmallow Marseille. So do I really need both of these cute, small, pastel-colored, adorable Marseille decks? I probably don't. I probably don't. And I don't even read Marseille all that often. So why necessarily would I need to have both of these? And yet, anytime I think of getting rid of one of them, I can't make up my mind. So if I had to, I would get rid of one of them, but I don't know which one I would pick. It would take me forever to make that decision, because like I look at them and I'm like, oh, you know, I kind of prefer these holographic backings on the Marshmallow Marseille, but oh, the Squid Cake has these super cute pink edges. And then, you know, from the standpoint of what the cards actually look like, you know, I do really like the fact that this Squid Cake has, for the pips, the actual name written out down at the bottom here, whereas, oh, I got both my 8s of cups at the same time, whereas the Marshmallow Marseille doesn't have them on there, so this makes this one a little bit easier to read, but at the same time, you know, do I prefer the look of the people in this one because they have a little bit more of that sort of classical Marseille look to them? The Marshmallow Marseille is easier to shuffle than the Squid Cake, but the Squid Cake has this cute little, actually very well done guidebook that the Marshmallow Marseille doesn't have. So like, you can see my conundrum here. Like, I literally could not in a million years make up my mind as to which one of these I would want to keep. And yet they're similar enough in their energy that I'm like, do I really need both of them? Probably not, but thankfully I never have to make this decision because they don't take up very much space and I can keep both of them and enjoy both of them. But if I had to get rid of one of them, I suppose I could, and it would make sense for me to get rid of one of them, but I don't know how I would ever make up my mind. So the next deck that I probably could get rid of if I really wanted to is the Tarot Original 1909. And this is a deck that I bought, and this is specifically the reason that I got this deck, is because I wanted a purse-sized deck, a mini-sized deck that had the classic Rose and Lily's backs. Like, this deck just feels very, very classic to me as far as a Rider-Waite-Smith. I really like the coloration of it. I just really enjoy, you know, what this deck looks like. It feels like a very, very classic tarot, and that makes it a fun deck for me to carry around in my purse, to kind of feel like I always have that RWS on hand if I need it. And I really like the fact that it has these specific backings as opposed to, like, for example, the Centennial in a Tin, which doesn't have backings that are quite as classic as this. They're very nice backings, but I just don't like them as much. So I have this deck, again, as a sort of knock-around purse deck. Do I really need this one? Probably not, but I do like it. I do like having this one, and I do like carrying this one around. And also, fun fact, if you're ever going to fly with decks in tins make the TSA very, very upset. They do not like it because they cannot see inside of the tins with their x-ray machines. And so anytime I forget and fly with a deck in a tin, I end up getting extra screening from the TSA and having to let them open the tin and have to explain to them that it's tarot cards. So this is a great deck if I'm going to be flying, to take in my bag with me. This is a very nice travel deck specifically for flying. Again, just after a couple too many incidents with the TSA, if I've forgotten that I have a deck in a tin in my bag, this is a really nice one because it's just in a nice little cardboard box. So next up on the list of decks I probably could let go of if I needed to, this is a Location Tarot. And this is a very cool deck that I like a lot, but it isn't super usable, I will say. It is, I'm just trying to see if I can get it to show. The way that this deck works is that it has all of the sort of backgrounds of all of the locations that are depicted in the classic Rider-Waite-Smith in Pixie's artwork. It has a sort of, you know, kind of updated art style version of those. And the characters and other stuff in the card are all depicted in UV spot gloss. And I'm just trying to see through my camera if any of that's showing up. Like this is the Page of Cups, for example. So you have to hold the cards at a specific angle to actually see the figure in the card. But as a result of that, it's kind of cool because, you know, the locations of the cards, the surroundings, the scenery are very front and center, which, as you guys all know, I like decks with a strong sense of place, and I really enjoy the look of cards like that. Like this is the Page of Swords. I don't know if you can see the spot gloss at all. I'm trying to shift it around so you can see, but so the concept of this deck is just so cool to me. Like I really like the concept. I think it's very cool. But again, it's not like the most usable deck on the face of the planet, because you do have to kind of like, you know, either have a very, very good memory for the surroundings of the figures, and, you know, some are easier than others. Obviously, like it's pretty easy to tell, you know, some of these cards. But you do have to tilt the cards to get the full impact of the figure in the card. So I really hang on to this deck because it's just such a cool concept for a deck. And again, I do love decks that have a strong sense of location and a strong sense of place. But I don't use this deck very often at all. You know, it's not a deck that I frequently reach for or anything. I just think it's really cool. I think the concept of it is cool. And so that's why I hang on to it. And it's, you know, perfectly fine. Like obviously I have the space to hang on to it. So that's all good. You know, it is very, very cool, but it's just, again, one of those decks I sort of hang on to for the coolness of the concept factor, as opposed to this is a deck that I reach for a lot factor. So the final deck on my list of decks that I could sacrifice if I absolutely had to is the Believe in Your Own Magic Oracle. And you know, this is just a nice little oracle deck. It's very, very affirmation style, I'd say. And I really like a lot of things about this deck. I really like the artwork. I don't particularly love the keywords because I don't think they're super helpful, but I do like the messages on the cards. I really just feel like this is, it's a sweet deck. It's a lovely deck. It's a great deck to pull out, you know, on those occasions when you really do just need an affirmation, or you need a little bit of instruction, or a little bit of direction, or just a little bit of a smile, something that just, you know, gives you a little happy in that moment. You know, but I wouldn't say it's a deck with like the most depth ever. I do love the artwork. I love that a lot of the figures in the deck have larger bodies. Like that is something that is really, really awesome and important to me. So those are kind of some of the reasons that I really hang on to this one. But again, it's just kind of one of those ones that I pull out when I need to smile, basically. You know, it's not a deck that I would say that I get a lot of like really, really deep introspection out of or anything like that. But it is, it's just, it's a nice little deck. I could live without it for sure. But you know, I do just really like it. I really enjoy it. It doesn't give me depth, but it gives me fun, and it gives me just a little jolt of happiness when I pull it out. So again, this is the Believe in Your Own Magic Oracle by Amanda Lovelace. And that's it. Thanks so much for spending this time with me to take a look at some of the decks that I could sacrifice if I needed to, if I absolutely had to lose a couple decks from my collection just to make space, or for whatever reason. These are some of the ones that I could get rid of, even though I don't really want to. I hope you've enjoyed. I will leave a link to Julie's original video for this tag down in the description box. And I hope other people will participate, because this is kind of a fun one. It's sort of fun to think about the role that different decks play in your collection, and just, you know, be accepting of the fact that there might be decks that we don't need. Not that you necessarily need any tarot deck, but, you know, decks that don't necessarily play a huge role in your practice, but they're decks that you hang on to for a variety of reasons. And as long as you have the space, there's nothing wrong with that. So anyway, thanks again. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.